My name is Tom Fadoust. I was a civil engineer in Istanbul, and what I'm about to tell you isn't in any record, any archive, or any file folder locked away in a government drawer. But it happened, and if you live in this city, there's a chance you're walking above it every day. It started in 2011, during the expansion of Istanbul's underground metro system. I was assigned to a tunneling project under the name Line E Section 42A. Nothing suspicious, right? But here's the thing. That tunnel didn't appear on most public maps. Even our internal files didn't call it by name. It was just referred to as Tunnel 42. When I asked about the missing documents, the site manager laughed. You'll know why it's missing when you've been down there long enough. We were building deeper than usual, around 42 meters underground. Yes, 42. The number kept showing up. 42 workers on the team. 42 steps down from the service elevator to the main shaft. And of course, the name Tunnel 42. The first few weeks were standard. Noise, dust, stress. You stop noticing. But the silence, that's what gets you. Some nights, when the machines were off, I would stand alone in the shaft to record ambient vibration data. And I swear, the silence wasn't empty. It was waiting. Then the equipment started acting weird. One morning, the vibration logs contained human voices. Not talking, whispering. It sounded like prayer or chanting. But no one had been inside that section for hours. We brushed it off. Maybe echoes, maybe corrupted recordings. But that week, 3 workers refused to enter the tunnel again. One of them left his hard hat and badge on the floor and walked out in his undershirt. He didn't even collect his pay. When I asked him why, he only said, "There's someone in there, praying with no mouth." After that incident, security at the site was tightened. We weren't allowed to record audio inside the shaft anymore. But I kept a small recorder in my pocket, just in case. Something about that place made me feel watched. Not by cameras, not by people, but by space itself. Like the tunnel had a memory. 2 weeks later, I was reviewing a vibration log when I noticed a sharp drop in ambient frequency. Normally, a functioning tunnel hums around 35 Hz. But for 1 full hour, Tunnel 42 flatlined. Silence, complete and unnatural. That same day, I received a maintenance request from one of the lower crews. A floodlight had blown out again. 3rd time that week. I joined the electrician to check it out. As we entered the main shaft, he suddenly stopped. His flashlight was trembling in his hand. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. I hadn't, so I listened, and then I did. It wasn't a sound, not exactly. It was like pressure. like a thought pressing against your ears from the inside. It said nothing, but it wanted something: to be noticed, acknowledged, heard. We turned the corner and saw the broken floodlight hanging from its cable, swaying slowly. No wind, no vibration, but it moved. The electrician didn't even try to fix it. He just muttered, "I'm not dying down here," and left. I stayed. I walked further into the unlit part of the shaft, telling myself I needed to check the wall stress levels. But honestly, I was drawn to it. The darkness felt thick, like it was breathing. And then I heard something I'll never forget. My own voice, from inside the tunnel, saying my name. Tom, exactly how I say it. Same tone, same cadence. But I hadn't spoken. I turned back immediately. I didn't run, I couldn't. My legs were heavy, like the air itself was holding me down. When I reached the light again, I found something written on the dusty steel panel near the exit. Finger traced, smudged. One word: listen. The day after I found "listen" scrawled into the dust. I submitted a formal request for structural reassessment. Of course, I didn't mention voices or pressure or darkness that breathes. I just said unusual acoustic behavior, possible soil movement, standard engineering lingo. It bought me time, but I wasn't the only one feeling it. By the end of that week, 2 workers were missing. No alerts, no reports. They simply didn't show up to the safety check-in. Security combed the tunnels. Nothing. Their lockers were untouched. Phones left in the break room, as if they had just walked into the tunnel and never come back. Then came the night shift call I'll never forget. 1:11 a.m. A radio transmission from a panicked foreman on the lower level. We're hearing knocking from the walls, like rhythmic, and one of the guys he's repeating things we didn't say. The signal cut out mid-sentence. When we reached the shaft, it was silent. No signs of struggle. Just one thing left behind on the tunnel floor. A hard hat cracked in half, and underneath it, a strip of metal from a support beam, bent into a perfect spiral. That's not something you find. That's something you leave. I reported the incident. The next morning, 2 men in black suits showed up. Not from the city, not from the Metro Authority. They interviewed us separately. No names, no credentials. They asked questions like, do you believe the tunnel is aware of you? Have you had dreams you don't recognize as your own? After that, things changed. Lighting schedules were altered. Surveillance cameras were removed from the deeper levels. And the project plans, the actual blueprints, were updated, with certain sections blacked out entirely. They didn't want to seal the tunnel. They wanted to feed it. I tried to quit, but my resignation was denied. Instead, I was reassigned to a new role: internal anomaly documentation. That's a fancy way of saying, keep listening and tell us if it talks again. It did. Weeks passed. I stopped asking questions. I stopped talking much, even to my wife. All I did was listen. The deeper I went into Tunnel 42, the more it felt like entering a system, not a place, not infrastructure, but a body. The walls started changing. Sometimes the concrete would feel warm, soft in places, other times cold enough to fog your breath, even though we were under heated ventilation. And then came the dreams, not my own. I'd wake up remembering conversations I never had, in voices that weren't mine. If you build deep enough, we will answer. You were not meant to hear. One night, I arrived for an unplanned inspection and found a new access corridor I didn't recognize on any map. Freshly dug, no markings, no lights. It ended in a small chamber, circular, perfectly symmetrical, like it wasn't built, but grown. There were symbols scratched into the surface, geometric, sharp, but underneath them, fingerprints in the dust. Hundreds, some small like children, some not. I left without saying a word. That same week, a scheduled blast was authorized to collapse the lower tunnel section. The official reason: unstable soil. The real reason: they knew something was coming through. The detonation failed. Instead of collapsing, the walls absorbed the blast. Like clay, like something hungry, the cameras went black. The emergency lights cut off. And for 11 minutes, everyone in Tunnel 42 went off-grid. I wasn't inside, but I heard the screams over the intercom. Not panicked, not terrified, just quiet, like they were being swallowed. Afterward, only 3 people came back up. Their eyes were black, not bruised, just empty, like whatever had looked out of them before was no longer there. They never spoke again. They were declared mentally unstable and removed from the site. We never saw them again. Tunnel 42 was sealed the next morning. Reinforced steel, concrete plugs, GPS coordinates wiped from our system. The site was marked inactive, abandoned. But that's a lie. It was never abandoned. We were just told to stop asking. My position was terminated 6 months later. I signed a document saying I wouldn't discuss any unauthorized anomalies. They paid me well to forget, but I haven't, because Tunnel 42 never stopped calling. Some nights, I wake up at 2:34 a.m., always the same time, always the same noise, static, like from a two-way radio. Sometimes if I'm too slow to mute it, I hear my own voice again. Not recorded. Live. We're still digging. You should have listened harder. Last week, a package arrived at my door. No return address. Inside, a construction helmet, cracked in half. On the inside, written in marker, Layer 43 has opened. There was no Layer 43. Not in any blueprint. Not in any document. But the tunnel's not following our plans anymore. I moved out of the city, changed my name, burned the clothes I wore on my last day underground. I unplug every device in my house at night, but I still hear the whispers in the pipes and sometimes in the walls. If you've made it this far, if you're still listening, do me one favor. Never follow the sound. Some things buried underground aren't meant to be found.